Welcome back to Auto Tech, where we explore the latest and greatest in the world of high-performance cars and bikes.
Are brilliant daily riders with almost sports bike levels of fun, but then a more comfortable, versatile riding position. And you don't have to break the bank to have a good time on one. So here we go with our pick of the best nakeds between 7 and 8 grand from each of the major manufacturers in price order ascending. Now the Kawasaki Z650 is a fairly humble bike with one of the least powerful engines on the market that also has a bit of an agricultural sound to it owing to the 180-degree crank in this parallel twin. Then the chassis components are fairly basic with a right way up fork and 2-pot brakes. And while the tech package has been updated fairly recently with a TFT dash, it's still not the most feature-laden bike either. So I guess the question is, well, why would you buy one? And the easy answer is that it's the most affordable bike on this list, starting at just under 7 grand in the UK. Then it's also a proven, reliable performer with a design that stayed relatively unchanged over the years, and so you could see that as a good thing if you're primarily looking for dependability. Still, I will say there are more exciting ways to spend similar money, but it could be worth a look if you're on the strictest possible budget. Just 300 quid more though will get you a bit of a bargain with Honda's brilliant CB750 Hornet. This twin, like many others later on this list, gets a 270-degree crank to give it more of the sound and character of a V-twin, and for me, it's a much more pleasing note at the exhaust than the likes of the Kawasaki higher redline, which means this bike makes an extra 20 or so horses with a peak figure of 90 at 9,500 RPM. It really is quite a lively engine with a proper snap to the throttle response, and so I think it'd entertain even the more experienced biker despite the relatively budget price tag. The rest of the bike is decent too, with respectable Showa suspension, radial Nissin brakes and a keen sense of agility, and a low seat height of 795mm and fairly slender curb weight of 192 kilos both make it very approachable, although taller riders might find it a little bit squat. Still, with plenty of riding modes and rider aids and connectivity through the TFT dash, plus the great engine and the nimble chassis, well, it's very hard to argue with for the price. If you're more of a traditionalist though, then the SV650 is an old favourite that by now offers an almost semi-retro look with the round headlight and steel trellis frame. It's a simple bike in terms of the chassis and tech, but with a huge track day scene around it, there are almost infinite upgrades and mods available on the aftermarket, and so it's ideal if you're the sort of rider who likes to tinker in the garage. Perhaps though, the most compelling reason to buy one is the engine, which offers a genuine V-twin configuration amongst a sea of parallel imposters. A parallel twin is cheaper to make with just the one-cylinder head. It's easy to package in the bike too, with it being more compact, but there's just something about a proper V-twin that feels subtly different, and so for the purist, the SV might just have the edge. It's pretty much the point of owning one, to be in a constant state of modification flux. Also from Suzuki, at a very similar price point, we've got a more modern interpretation of the affordable middleweight naked format in the form of the GSX 8S. This one is a parallel twin, and with a bit more capacity than the SV, it makes more like 80 horsepower to the 70, and a very nice to use engine it is too. You see, while it won't be the most powerful on the list, it is beautifully balanced and smooth, and it also gets a silky throttle delivery that makes it a real pleasure to ride. The handling isn't bad either, with a well-spec'd chassis, and while the tech package doesn't have the latest connectivity or navigation features, well, there is a TFT dash with a few different settings for the power and rider aids, which feels appropriate, I guess, for this sort of price. Looks-wise, it's not my favourite of the bunch, with a bit of an unusual look to the front end, but if you can get past that, generally I'd say it's at least worth a demo if you're shopping in this part of the market. Perhaps the best seller in the class though over the past 10 years or so has been the Yamaha MT-07, which offers a snappy parallel twin in the form of their CP2 engine, combined with a super light chassis at about 180 kilograms curb for an engaging ride that's always willing to entertain. The only problem for this bike recently was that with the launch of the Hornet from Honda and some of the other comps, and the simple LCD dash was starting to look really quite dated. But for 2020 2025, Yamaha have made some significant improvements to bring it back up to date with more tech, more rider aids, and an upside-down fork and radial brakes. I'm yet to ride this new version, but it promises to be at least competitive, and it even has a bit of a USP in that you can now buy it with their AMT or automated manual transmission. That means you can run it in an automatic mode with electronic operation of the gearbox and clutch, so you can just ride it as a twist and go, or you can override it and choose the gears yourself with the triggers on the left-hand switchgear. Sure, it's another 350 quid on top of the standard bike, but if you're after an automatic bike in 2025, well, this one by far and away is your most affordable option. Now, we are getting quite close now to the 8 grand side of things, and so these bikes are probably going to have to do something a bit different to warrant the extra spend. I do think though that it's fair to say the Triumph Trident 660 has plenty going for it, with the main standout feature being its inline triple that gives it a completely different character to all of the twins that operate in this category. It's got a brilliant mid-range which is perfect for road riding, and that triple soundtrack at the exhaust is a pleasant change from the norm. Looks-wise, it's a little bit more retro than some of the other bikes, with slightly old-school styling cues like the round headlight and tank shape, and also the chassis is sweetly set up, as per usual when it comes to Triumph. All of this stuff was true of the first generation, but for 2025, I think they've made it even more compelling by adding a whole bunch of features fitted as standard. So you've now got a sport riding mode, cruise control, a quick shifter, and their connectivity module all bundled in. And so there's really not much left in the accessories catalogue that you'd have to fork out for. It's a cracking bike that I thoroughly recommend checking out. Another option though with a bit of a difference is Honda's CB650R with an inline 4 that gives it the most sporty power delivery of the whole bunch, with the 750 Horner offering such good value for money and also performing well in terms of sales. I'd kind of expected Honda to kill this one off, but I guess the engine configuration is perhaps enough of a differentiator to keep it in the 2025 lineup. Admittedly, it's not quite as usable at moderate speeds with less punch in the low to mid revs than a twin, but when you wind it up and really get it singing, there are 94 horses on tap, which is plenty enough to get the front wheel hovering. It is, however, a little on the weighty side at 205 kilograms curb, but it's still a nice handling bike, and I think the looks are also perhaps the most premium of the bunch, with the Honda Neo Sports Cafe design language that I think still looks good despite being a few years old now. I'd say if you like an inline 4, perhaps the only reason not to buy one is that it now looks like it's only available with Honda's e-clutch system, at least here in the UK anyway, where the manual bike is no longer listed on their website. This means it's kind of twist and go like the Yamaha AMT with no need to operate the clutch, but you do still need to take care of the shifting with your left foot. So it's kind of a halfway house between a manual and an automatic, and so that could rule it out if you're specifically looking for a manual. But if you want something that's super easy to ride in stop-start traffic, then on the flip side, you could see it as a nice bonus. Perhaps in many ways though, the most expensive bike on this list is actually the best, and that's the KTM 790 Duke. The 790 parallel twin is super punchy and entertaining, and the handling is fantastic too. The WP suspension has a great quality to it and more adjustability than most of the competition, and there's also a comprehensive tech package that should give you pretty much everything you could ever need. One thing I really liked about it though is more fundamental than this, and that's the riding position, which sits quite a bit taller than the rest of the competition at 825mm in the seat. There is, I think, a tendency in this part of the market to make the bikes quite low and accessible, with a lot of these bikes partially targeted at newer riders because of the price point, and they might be less confident on a tall bike. This one though is more in line with the more premium sporty naked, and so you've got a more tail-up aggressive position, which I think feels much more suited to quicker riding. So it is a really good all-round package that is a ridiculous amount of fun out on the road for less than 8 grand. And so you might be wondering, well, what are the downsides? Well, it isn't the best looking, I'd say. And while their sister company Husqvarna offer pretty much the same bike, but restyled in their own much more pleasing design language, well, you've got to pay an extra couple of grand for a Vitpillen 801. Also, these KTM 790s are produced in China now to keep the cost down, which you may not care about at all if you're getting a lot of bike for your money, but I know from the comments on our videos that plenty of you would rather not. Then there's the camshaft issue, which affected this engine over the past couple of years, although KTM now say it's resolved with some changes to the internals. And it also gets their controversial demo mode, which allows you to use all of the software features on the bike, like the full suite of rider aids, the cruise control and the quick shifter, but then shuts them all off after about 1,000 miles of evaluation, and then you've got to pay to unlock them again. And finally, there's the current financial struggles of KTM, which are still very much unresolved, and so you might see it as a little bit risky to buy one at the moment.
Thanks for joining us in this video. If you found this content engaging, don't forget to hit that like button, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel for more thought-provoking insights. And remember, your comments are invaluable to us, so share your thoughts below, and may the wealth be with you.